I'm Tanya Boteju, and I'm the author of Kings, Queens, and In-Betweens and Bruised.
What's your new book, Bruised, about?
Bruised is a YA novel about a girl named Daya who is 17 years old and who has lost her parents to a car accident before the book begins, but she was also in the car accident and survived. And so she's taken to bruising herself as a way to manage her grief. And she is obviously not managing very well, but thinks she is. And so when a friend introduces her to roller derby, she sees it as a really great opportunity to continue bruising herself, but obviously eventually realizes that it's a lot more than that. And she comes to some understanding of who she is, who her parents were, and their relationship. One of the key parts of the book is this idea of where strength comes from. And so I think if readers, especially young readers, walk away with any sort of message, that's the one I hope they walk away with, that strength looks a lot of different ways, and oftentimes it looks like softness and gentleness.
What was it like writing Bruised?
It was not as hard as maybe some people tend to think of that second book as way harder, because the pressure maybe to perform is there. I guess there's a little bit of that, but for the most part, because I enjoyed the topic that I was writing about, the characters that I was starting to develop, I actually felt in some ways it was a bit easier because I had written a book, which I hadn't done before, and I wasn't just trying to figure it out as I go as much. And I actually really do feel like Bruised is a better written book than Kings, which is obviously what you want as a writer. You want to continue growing and getting better, right? One of the parts of the book that I didn't know was going to happen when I started writing it that eventually came to be, that I really love, is these scenes where we get to see Daya with her parents. So they're all in the past, and every so often in the novel we get these snapshots of her relationship with them. And her parents are immigrants from Sri Lanka, like my parents are. And so, a lot of my experience came to play in those scenes to some extent. And I really enjoyed revisiting pros and cons of being an immigrant and then also being a child of immigrants. I love where that piece of the book went, and how important it became. And also, as a bit of a homage, I guess, to immigrant families and parents, and how incredible it is to do what they do, and how hard it is. And so like the reasoning behind some of the things that they might do as parents as well was interesting to think about and reflect on, both for the book, but also just for me and thinking about my own parents.
What was your research process for this book?
So I, when I was trying to think of a second book, I decided that I would start with communities and spaces that I was attracted to or thought really highly of. And roller derby is definitely one of those spaces. I really admire it. I think that the team aspect, the empowerment aspect, the sort of female driven pieces of it, it's a super queer community to some extent. All of those things just really attracted me to it. And then once I decided that would be a really cool space to kind of immerse myself in, I started thinking who would be attracted to this sport and for what reason. Yeah, I definitely had to do some research, having never experienced the sport myself. I watched a lot of videos. Of course, the first thing I watched was Whip It, which is, just a loose sort of interpretation of the sport, but got deeper in with a couple of books actually, as well as a couple of documentaries. So I did make sure to look into more than just roller derby. I looked back a little bit on the roller skating scene in general, and its history. And so that was just fascinating and fun, and then also made it into the book to some extent too. And I also just sort of asked folks, I sent them like a questionnaire basically, and got really, really great responses and lots of really good details that only you would know if you had participated in roller derby, like the feeling of being on the track and that kind of thing. So that was awesome. It was fun for me to be able to work those into the book and create some of that color that I sort of have seen from afar.
Will we see you on the track soon? Got a cool roller derby nickname?
I would not try roller derby. I am honestly, I am a huge risk taker when it comes to intellectual risk taking. When it comes to my body, there's no way. It's just terrifying to me to think about bashing myself around against these people who are for sure way tougher than I am. I mean, I don't know. I had this weird nickname in high school because for some reason my high school art teacher, I guess, spell check had corrected my name, Tanya Boteju, to Tangy Booty. And it stuck, and it's actually awesome. And so I have definitely, I've used that in a few different instances for different things over the years. So that I feel like would be a really good starting point for sure.